Coming up on this week's show, we're talking to the authors of the Changing on the Fly charity anthology, Heather Lire, Locey and RJ Scott.
Welcome to the Big Gay Fiction Podcast, the show for readers and writers of gay romance fiction. If you can read it, write it, watch it, or listen to it, these two guys are going to talk about it. Now, here are your hosts, Jeff Adams and Will Knaus.
Welcome to episode 108 of Jeff and Will's Big Gay Fiction Podcast. I'm Jeff from JeffAdamsWrites.com.
And I'm Will from WillKnaus.com. This week's episode is brought to you in part by listeners just like you. We'll have more information on how you can help support this podcast in just a few minutes. Welcome back.
Thank you. It's nice to be home.
Yeah. 'Tis.
We did a lot while we were gone. It was crazy.
We are, I think we're pretty much done on our recovery. I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Obviously, my brain has not recovered just yet. I did get some sleep. We've recovered from GRL for the most part. I got some sleep. You did some traveling.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It was crazy. We got home on Monday morning, which was great. And then I was home and working on Tuesday. And then Wednesday I went to the Bay Area for some work.
So
the Bay Area for some work.
The Bay Area. Oh, yes. You mean San Francisco.
Well, I was in Oakland too. And Pleasanton, so I was all over the place.
Oh, you a world traveler.
A Bay Area traveler, if nothing else. And I was supposed to come home Thursday night and couldn't get home because of the fog up here. And so I finally came home Friday morning. And I might be put back together from all that travel and sleep weirdness and everything else. So maybe. Yeah, crazy. Yeah. We did get to see cover concepts for Hockey Player's Heart this week. That was exciting. Yes,
the production process on our co-authored book is moving along. And we saw some, earlier this week, we saw some cover model possibilities.
Yes.
We chose one. And then just the other day, we saw our initial cover concepts.
Yeah.
And we're pretty happy so far.
Pretty darn happy. And we saw Galleys this week, and It's almost done. It's almost a book, people. It's very exciting.
Indeed.
Seeing our scripty little font names was very cool to me on the title page. I thought was very cool. So, yeah. There's big stuff going on this week.
Big stuff?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Well, of course, there's Halloween on Tuesday.
Halloween!
For those of you who are into the Halloween thing.
Happy Halloween to everyone.
Yes. And then November 2nd, which would be Thursday, is our second podcast-iversary. November 2nd, 2015, our little show was born. And came into the world.
I don't know what to say.
Just say yay.
Yay?
2 years, 108 episodes, plus all kinds of bonuses.
That's very true. Very, very true. How do you feel on the podcast-iversary?
I think it's very cool that we've been 2 years at this. That weekly we stand here before all of you and our camera, which is up here, doing this show and having a good time with it.
I agree. Any deep, meaningful thoughts about these past 2 years?
I don't know. I think it's nice that we've kept it going, talking about the genre that we do love so much as the genre itself has grown. We've seen a couple other podcasts, drop out in the time that we've been doing it, but we've seen the new ones come in.
Indeed.
And we hope to see that grow. Start a podcast if you're out there listening.
Please.
We would love to have more people talking about this.
Yeah. I think, in general terms, I think 2016 was the year of the podcast. I think podcasts got a whole lot of, in traditional media, they spilled a lot of ink talking about how podcasts are the important hip new thing, and that's how you reached your audience. And there were, a lot of very big podcasts exploding at that time, having literally millions of downloads. And So, and as we got into 2017, I think that sort of frenetic enthusiasm sort of died down, and a lot of shows sort of petered off and just sort of disappeared. Went the way of blogs in like 2009.
Right.
Remember when everyone had a blog? So, yeah. I'm very proud and very glad that we, number one, started this show. I think you and I, we personally saw a void, and we thought, I don't know why we thought we were the experts to fill that void, but we did, and that's what we did, and I don't know, here we are 2 years later. I know.
It's crazy, but it's fun.
It's a little weird.
And we want to thank everyone who's joined us since GRL last week. This past week of the show has been our highest downloaded and YouTubed week ever. And that would be true even if we hadn't produced the bonus episodes.
This past Friday specifically, for no reason that we can actually, we have no idea why, we had a astronomical spike in the show's downloads. And while, behind the scenes there are certain metrics with which to measure the success of our show, it's still a little
it's mind-blowing.
Trying to figure out where that spike came from, we actually have no idea and no way of actually knowing. So, that being said, we appreciate you giving the show a try.
Absolutely.
And if you are a brand new listener, we hope you enjoy this episode, and we hope you stick around for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome aboard.
Also, something happened at GRL this past weekend concerning the podcast, and I wanted just to mention it a little bit,
okay.
super briefly. Last year, at Kansas City, we went to GRL for the very first time in an official podcast capacity. We sponsored the GRL blog tour.
Yeah.
We had hosted authors here on the show. And so last year was the very first time that we kind of went with our sort of fancy podcasts hats on.
Yes.
I suppose you could say it that way. We've been going to GR. I swear I'm going somewhere with this.
Okay.
No, we've been going to GRL for quite some time.
This was our sixth.
And we have lots of friends and acquaintances. And I think, for the most part, people just know us as, Jeff and Will. We're those guys. And for the very first time last year, we went under the official banner of the podcast. And I still think most people viewed us as Jeff and Will, those guys.
Mm-hmm.
And this year, I feel that I think, in part, I think most people saw us as the podcast. As the podcast
mm-hmm.
brand that we've been working to build for 2 years now.
Mm-hmm. I think that's true. There were more people who were like, "Oh, hey, I love your show," or "I listen to the show," or
exactly.
And that was cool.
I think part of that might have been that there has been an influx of new attendees at GRL. So we don't know everybody who showed up in Denver. So there were a lot of people who came up to us and saying, hey, you're the guys from that podcast. We like the show, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that it was different, and it freaked me out a little bit.
Yeah, you did have, especially Friday morning. You were like, "Oh my God, what's happening?
What's that? What's that actually mean?" It was like it's nothing anyone said or did. Everyone was incredibly kind and very generous.
It's just something new.
It was just a new dynamic, and I kind of had to wrap my head around it for a second. Yeah. So we're moving forward. Woohoo! Yay for the podcast.
Indeed, yes.
So yeah, I have to come to terms with the idea that the podcast is actually a thing now. It's not just something we kind of do and...
It's not just something we do on a Sunday.
People genuinely watch it and listen to it and enjoy it. That's sort of a interesting concept.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's sort of what authors sometimes go through and they spend so much time with their creativity by themselves, and they spend so much time working on a book. They write it, and then they edit it, and they pour their heart and soul into a book, and then they release it out into the world. And there's this moment when you finally realize that people are actually reading it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's how I felt concerning the podcast. Anyway,
yeah.
I've rambled on a really long time. Let's move on to the next topic.
Which is your birthday.
My birthday?
Yes, your birthday's coming up on the 4th, which I believe is Friday, if I've counted the dates right. It might be Saturday, but it is in the next week.
Mm-hmm.
So, happy upcoming birthday to you, sir.
Uh-huh. I am turning 45. Super old.
He says super old, and yet I'm 4.5 years older than he is. So
it's such a crazy idea. Who'd have ever thought I'd be hitting 45? It's a weird idea.
No, you'd have to get there eventually.
Well, yeah, time marches on, as they say. I do have some things planned for my 45th year. We will probably get into that and explore some of those ideas in upcoming episodes. Nothing I want to talk about right now. We'll keep it on the down low.
Okay.
And we do not plan on doing anything special for my birthday. I'm not one of those people who, it's just like,
you and I both moved past that a while ago.
It's just like, whatever. It's not my favorite thing. Although this year I am not depressed about it.
Good.
I've mentioned before on the show that my birthday comes at a weird time. There are a lot of confluence of events that happen around Halloween and the beginning of November. We usually get home from GRL, and then there's that sort of post-con dip in emotions that we all feel. Then my birthday, and then NaNoWriMo starts up, and there I have a whole lot of emotions wrapped up in that event as well. So, and in years past, it's been very difficult for me. I'm feeling pretty chipper right now. So I'm forging ahead into my 45th year with my head held high, and I'm optimistic.
Good. I'm glad.
I think deep down in my core, I am a cynic. I learned that from my parents. But I'm kind of wrapped in an optimistic candy-coated shell. And right now, my candy coating is still intact in terms of my birthday. So I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Well, that's good.
So yay me.
So we need to take a more somber turn for just a moment.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there's something happened, then we need to address it.
Yes. This week, the genre lost one of its most beloved, I would say, and prolific writers.
Mm-hmm. Sandrine Gasq-Dion passed away a few days after we returned from GRL. She was actually at Con book signing in Florida the same weekend we were away, and she passed away suddenly in the middle of the week.
Mm-hmm. And we send our deepest condolences to her friends, her family, her fans, and everyone out there. She will be missed.
Yes. There was a lot of people online were genuinely shocked, but there was an incredible outpouring of goodwill. I think other authors loved and appreciated her generosity, and the fans, so many readers, loved her books and the work that she did. So she will be sorely missed.
Yes, absolutely.
Changing on the Fly is a celebration of romance, featuring 4 stories about hockey players falling in love on and off the ice. All proceeds from the anthology are donated to the You Can Play project, which supports inclusiveness in athletics. The stories include Head in the Game by Jeff Adams, Second Chance at Love by Heather Lire, Rookie Moves by V.L. Locey, and Secrets by RJ Scott. The anthology is available from Amazon.com and other online retailers for a limited time only during the 2017-18 NHL season. Pick yours up today and support a worthwhile cause.
So that's that little couple minutes in the show where we tell you how much we appreciate the folks who help support us on Patreon.
We want to send a very big thank you to Kendra for increasing her pledge from the bronze to silver level. Thanks for that extra support, Kendra.
Thank you.
You're awesome. Now, you can help support the Big Gay Fiction Podcast with a monthly pledge through Patreon. For as little as 25 cents an episode, your pledge helps pay for the cost of producing and distributing this podcast. And for fans who pledge at the silver and gold levels, which we kind of just mentioned, you'll have the exclusive opportunity to ask questions of our upcoming guests. Now, all patrons also have the option to have a personalized thank you from us sent directly to them. Also, any month that we have pledges that cover our monthly production costs, we'll produce a bonus show, especially for our patrons. And we'll be recording the November bonus episode in just a few weeks.
Yes, absolutely.
You can get all the details on our Patreon page. Just go to patreon.com/biggayfictionpodcast. That is patreon.com/biggayfictionpodcast.
See, you read that just fine. Last week you were all like, I cold read it and did it. You read it just fine this week. Maybe I just helped you up your game on that.
Yeah, not too bad for an old guy.
So you mentioned while we were talking about your birthday, and I'm sure many of our audience knows NaNoWriMo starts this week. Mm-hmm. It starts on November 1st, which is Wednesday. It's weird.
Now, before you start going on, some of our listeners may be asking, what is this NaNoWriMo of which you speak? NaNoWriMo stands for National Novel Writing Month. That's NaNoWriMo. NaNoWriMo. And it is sort of a... it's not a competition. It's sort of a...
No, it definitely is not.
It's a global celebration of the written word where participants sign up and attempt to write a 50,000-word novel during the month of November.
Yes, which means if you stay on a daily word count, you write approximately 1667 words per day to hit the 50,000 words.
Indeed.
I've done it a number of years. I've won it a number of years. This year I'm not doing it because I have 6 or 7 chapters left to write in Winger 2, which need to be done, and then I need to edit because that's Winger 3. Winger 3 is due in to Harmony Inc. December 1st. So I don't have... It just won't work for me to go write something completely new in 50,000 words in the month because I've got this other thing that needs to be done.
You are what they call a NaNoWriMo rebel.
I suppose,
yes. Which means that you're not starting a new book fresh on November 1st. You're going to continue with existing projects.
Yes.
You are most likely going to end up writing 50,000 words in the month of November.
I don't know. If these chapters that are left should only be about 12 to 14,000. And then edits. I don't know how to count the words that'll be edited. The plus and the minus is too much for my head. But I will be working through Nano this year. Last year we did the first draft of Hockey Player's Heart got written in Nano.
Yes, it did.
And so for everyone who's doing Nano, you have our best wishes to go out and succeed in whatever your measure of success for the month is. Put some words on the page. If you're participating, that's all we can say is put words on the page because then you win anyway.
Mm-hmm. And if you are a long-time reader and have been curious about telling your own story and writing your own, I don't know, truth? I don't know. It's up to you. You can go to NaNoWriMo.org to learn more about it.
Yes. And kudos to everyone who's going to try it this year because it is a lot of fun. So Entertainment Weekly this week, in its November 3rd issue, came out with a story on gay coming-of-age movies that are happening because of the Moonlight Effect, as they put it. Of course, Moonlight won the Oscar last year for Best Picture, and so they were looking at some gay films that were coming out, either are out now or coming out in the coming months. I said that word way too much. They mentioned Beach Rats as something that came out this summer. I had not heard of this. Did it cross your line of sight? Well, that's good. Apparently it's about a Brooklyn teen who is struggling to get away from his home life, and he may have a girlfriend, hooks up with older men online. Sounds interesting, and maybe we'll see it someday. Maybe. Call Me By Your Name made this article, and of course you've been gaga for this movie for a while now, and it apparently comes out, at least in limited release, this coming month. November 24th is its date. I like what Armie Hammer said about the movie in the article. He said that they wanted to make a movie about love, emotion, craving, tenderness, love, loss, lust, grief, all that stuff. So I like a movie that has all the feels. So perhaps that one has it. Of course, the movie that I am most looking forward to in March is Love, Simon, which is the movieization of Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli. I will be in the theater because hopefully that's a big enough release from Fox that it'll end up going wide. Boy Erased, I wasn't too sure about this one. It's Nicole Kidman and Russell Crowe about a teen being pushed into conversion therapy, which sounds like something completely different than all the other ones that they talked about in the article and didn't really seem to fit.
I'm rolling my eyes really hard right now, just in case you're not watching the video. I think it's adorable that you thought this was kind of a positive article. You are always the optimist. I'm going to play the cynic right now.
Please do.
I think whoever wrote this article, now I have no idea what their sexual orientation actually is, but I think they need to check their hetero privilege at the door. I think the hook of this article was utterly bizarre to me. I do not get it at all. I mean, the article touts a new wave of coming-of-age gay stories, and it actually asks the question, why the influx of gay films? And I'm like, what planet are you on? The main point of the article is it's touting just three gay releases that are going to be coming out in the next 10 months. All of these movies are independently produced. They have nothing to do with Hollywood almost at all.
Yeah, Only Love, Simon is a big studio film.
So I didn't. I don't get the slant of this article. The only thing I think is positive about it is that it is promoting two movies I'm very enthusiastic about. Of course, Call Me By Your Name and Love, Simon, based on the book that you loved pieces. So I'm glad that those two movies got some love. I think they deserve it. Especially Call Me By Your Name. It continues to make its way through all the festivals, and everyone is really, really into it. So we're looking forward to it this holiday season.
Yeah, and the thing that I thought that they missed the ball on, since they called out Beach Rats, was that they didn't call out something like Summer, which has been all over the place since spring and summer this year. Big miss, and if I could find a way to email people, I'd do it. But Entertainment Weekly doesn't seem to do the letters thing anymore. But that was a big miss to me.
It was a bit of a head scratcher, but like I said, I'm glad that those two movies specifically were getting some love.
Want to hang out with us between shows? Check us out on Facebook. You never know what we might post. News about book sales, bonus video content, and maybe even a live broadcast or two. Like us today at facebook.com/Big Gay Fiction Podcast and see what we get up to next.
So earlier in October, you had the great pleasure of being in a charity anthology with some really lovely ladies.
I can't tell you how much I was thrilled when I got invited into this last year.
You may have jumped up and down a little bit.
I might have to go alongside of VL Locey and RJ Scott and Heather Lire.
Yep.
And continue in an anthology that like Avon Gale was in last year. It was like, oh my god! It's like I got invited to the cool kids table.
Yes, you did.
And as we did last year with the Changing on the Fly anthology, we got a little round table together to talk to the authors. So let's hear what Heather, VL, and RJ have to say about this year's anthology. I'm excited today to welcome my co-authors from the Changing on the Fly, the second period anthology. We've got Heather Lire, V.L. Locey, and RJ Scott. Welcome, everybody.
Hiya.
So, I want to give you a moment to introduce each of yourselves for the listeners. Heather, we'll start up with you.
So I'm Heather Lire, and I write contemporary romance under Heather Lire, and I write paranormal romance under Kenzie McLear. And by day, I am a high school Spanish teacher in the middle of nowhere, and at night, I'm a football mom, writing hockey while I sit in the stands.
Nice. Vicky?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were going to go to RJ. I was dawdling. I'm V.L. Locey, or Vicky Locey. You know, my pen name is so secretive, nobody will ever figure out who I am. I write mostly hockey romance. I do dabble with some paranormal and some other things. I also do MF, but that's kind of going by the wayside. I am a full-time author, chicken herder, cat wrangler, dog shusher, and I cheer the Rangers. That's about the extent of my excitement.
That's good excitement.
You know, keeps me out of the bars.
And RJ.
Hi, I'm RJ Scott. I'm an author of contemporary romance. Can you tell I'm reading from my notes? I'm a full-time author. I've been a full-time author for about 5 years now, and I've got probably about 120 books out there. I write a lot of hockey recently with that young lady there, V.L. Locey, and I love what I do, and I love the Penguins, and I'm still reeling. I'm reeling from that small loss that we took this week.
Yeah, that's not a way to open the season. For the listeners who don't know, the Penguins went down to the Blackhawks 10-1 in the season opener.
Nobody else knows. Don't tell people.
Just us four. We're the only ones that know.
So this is the second year for the Changing on the Fly anthology. Vicky, can you give us some background on what its origin was and how the volume actually performed last year?
2 years ago, I guess it was, Avon Gale and I, who Avon wasn't able to participate this year, we brainstormed this idea where we wanted to try to get together some hockey romance authors and do it a charity anthology, because there's been anthologies for everything else. And we wanted to donate the money to a charity that supports inclusiveness in sports. So last year, we did the first edition, and we raised over $3,000 that we sent to our chosen charity. And we were thrilled to death about that. So this year, we wanted to try to do it again. But as I said, unfortunately, Avon couldn't participate this year because her release schedule is almost, if not as equally insane as RJ's and mine. And so I kind of just took the reins and tried to gather everybody together. And I was fortunate enough to get these lovely authors here that we have here. And we're hoping that this year we can match what we made in the previous one or exceed it.
Yeah, that would be fantastic if we could do that. Let's talk about the stories that are in this year's. Very different stories. I've finished the book the other night, and I like how we all, without even talking to each other, managed to write people at different stages in their career. Because you've got RJ with the guys in the AHL. I've kind of written the guy who's been in the NHL for a while. Vicky did the superstar, and then Heather has the guy whose career he's exited hockey. Which I like how we spread that out so well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things I like about anthologies is you get, usually, I mean, unless the author sit down and okay, we're only going to write about this particular topic, but you get a wide area or wide choices of different kind of topics and different, like you said, different places in their careers or different leagues or different, places where they're at in life. So I like that choice that you get in there and that variety.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the individual stories. Heather, we'll start with yours. Tell us what yours is about and kind of what its origin story was.
So mine is about Zach and Tony, and they are reconnecting. They grew up as best friends, and Zach has known since he was a teenager that he was gay, but he was in and I didn't even realize this. And when I was voting, I was like, oh, that's probably the wrong state to have this in, but whatever, it works. And what he thinks is a very conservative Christian town in Vermont. But he was also a hockey phenom who, was one of those kids who had the NHL knocking on his door at 16, 17 years of age. And because he knew that's where he was going, he had to keep it quiet. And now he has exited hockey, not of his own free will, but because of a freak car accident. And so his mother, who you meet her in his sister's story. So people who read his sister's story are going to go, oh yeah, totally get that. He's on vacation to escape the things that his mom put in motion when he was laid up in the hospital. And so his best friend, who he's not seen since he was 18, shows up at the same place. And they kind of hash out what happened when he left and then kind of go forward. And one of my favorite lines is Tony tells Zach to get his shit together. It's probably one of my favorite lines in the book is when Tony looks at Zach and he's like, you need to get your shit together. I mean, because who can call you on it like your best friend?
Right.
And who also happens to be the guy that you've been in love with since you were 16, So that's kind of where the story ended or comes from. But it's set in my my other series, Holiday Vermont. And in A Holiday Christmas, you actually meet Zach and Tony, and it's years later. Like, they're married, they have a little girl. So the way I ended it is because those who've read the Holiday series, that's the Zach and Tony that they know. So it's kind of like a precursor to the Holiday series, because Zach's the mayor of Holiday Vermont. And I recently got the rights back to the whole Holiday series, so I get to rewrite it, and I get to put Zach and Tony, because they were never supposed to be Zach was never supposed to be a main character. So now I get to kind of put him in, sprinkle him in throughout the book now, the series. But that's where it came from, and I'm super excited about it, because how many boys? I have a guy I went to high school with who this could have been his story. We all knew he was gay, but he didn't come out until he was in college because of the time frame that he was in high school. Like last night, I'm a teacher, and I have a student who for 2 years were like, this kid just needs to come out of the closet. He just needs to come out of the closet. But he was 12 and 13 years old. He was not coming out, and he came out this week. So I'm like, that's brave for a 14-year-old boy.
It's very brave.
Living in the part of Denver that he lives in to come out. And I'm like, it's those students is the reason why I think Zach is the way he is. Tony is very open with what his sexuality is, but Zach is, and I look at my son's teammates and I'm like, how many of them are gay and aren't saying anything because they play football?
Mm-hmm.
Zach is for all those kids those boys who had to keep it quiet because they were not because of the way the world would react, but the way they thought the world was going to react, especially the time that they were playing.
And I'd like to know, I'm going to have to go read Holiday now when you put it back out, now that I know there's this whole other area where they're at.
There's 6 books, and his sister's actually A Holiday Christmas, and he's quite the little the Holiday Christmas starts off right where I ended Second Chance of Love.
Okay.
Cool.
So yeah.
So Vicky, you wrote a sequel to last year's anthology story with yours.
I did. It was I actually had it in my head when I wrote the one from last year that I'd like to do 3. We'll see. I'm hoping to do another one next year because you have to have the third period.
That's right.
You know. Right. You got to complete the game. But yeah, so this one kind of picked up since I write in first person. The story was told last year by Riley, and he's the quintessential New York superstar hockey player. I don't know who he's patterned after, but and
he's not Norwegian.
No, he's not. He's not Norwegian. He's actually not Swedish either, but he is patterned after somebody very famous. I'm not going to name names, but he's as Heather was saying, you know, he's the one that the NHL came knocking at his door at 15 and 16, and he actually skipped college to join the NHL at 18. But he was living a life of a closeted man until the fates throw this young street hustler in his path. And so that first book was from Riley's point of view, and I wanted to tell Kiefer's point of view because they're very much almost the Prince and the Pauper kind of thing, where Riley's the millionaire and he's got the loft and it looks over Gramercy Park and he's making blah 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 million, and then he falls in love with this kid who was in the sex trade. And so I really wanted to tell Kiefer's story this time, so that's where that came from, was the continuation of that storyline.
Yeah, and to people, the folks who heard me review the anthology a couple of weeks back on the show, this was the story in it that made me cry, because Riley Kiefer's story really just stabbed me, and is also he what he does in this story is like near and dear to my heart anyway. So
yeah, it's very much a discovery story for Kiefer, where he's, I don't want to give too much away, but
right.
It's very, very much a discovery story for him. And, coming into himself as a man where he thought he knew who he was, but, falling in love with Riley, opens up things for him, that he didn't realize that he wanted to do. And so it's very much a self-discovery story, as well as a nice little love story.
Yes, absolutely. I look forward to their third period.
Me too.
Oh, we should tell people too that there's a link in the book. If they missed last year's story, you've re-released as a freebie part 1.
Yes, there is. There's a link right at the beginning of my story for anybody who didn't read Riley's in the first anthology. So you can just go Insta freebie and grab it. And I suggest, you probably should. You should probably read it. I think it gives you a lot of background onto that, And then it's just a little short, it's under 20K like this one is. It takes you an hour or two. And then you can leap into Rookie Moves. And I think it gives you a lot better perspective on the dynamic and everything that went before.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us about your story, Jeff?
Oh, see, I was going to throw to RJ next, but
no, I'm
sure.
I'm happy for Jeff to go first. That's fine.
So
I'll let you two argue it out.
So for mine, I went with a guy who, he's been in the game for a while. He's had a breakup. He is out in my world, like in Vicky's. We've got out NHL players. But he had a really bad breakup because he was with somebody who wasn't out and didn't want to be. And his game's been slipping because of it. So he actually, in the off season, goes back home to see his former coach, because his former coach from high school really helped him find himself and come into not just being a good player, but also kind of helped turn him into the man that he became later. So he's gone back home to try and recapture that. But what he doesn't expect to find there is the coach's son, who, when he left home all these years ago, was like 5 or 6 years old, but now is, a college graduate, and a very handsome college graduate, no less. And they're kind of tossed together because while Roger is back home working on his game, he's also helping his former coach run his summer hockey camp, which Dylan is also a coach at. So it's a May-December story about Roger trying to fix himself and also maybe taking the chance on trying love again, even though, you know, he's kind of got to put his heart back together to do that and take the chance and proceed from there. It was a fun one to write. I haven't done May-December before, and so I was looking for something that was a little different to do from a writing point of view, to have a different kind of challenge, and I had a really good time with it. I really have to say.
You did really well with it. Things I never did May-December before. It was really, really a good read.
Yeah, I loved it.
It's one of my favorite tropes, so that's why I was like,
Tell us your story, RJ.
My story, I mean, I'm fairly new to this hockey business, only a couple of years now, but they're all tall, like, they're all 6'1", 6'2", 6'3", they're really, really tall and big and, you know, strong. And then you've got the little ones, haven't you? The cute ones, like Connor Sheary and that Norwegian guy from the New York team. I don't know who he is.
what is his name?
What fascinated me was the fact that even on it, when you had the lineup at the beginning, you'd have like tall, really short person, tall, and I'm thinking, how do they kind of cope? So you had this really short guy. He's 5'8", but his bio says he's 5'9", and he's quite proud of that extra inch. So, you know, quite cool. And he's in the closet, but not in any bad way. And it's quite open in the book that there are quite a few gay NHL players and AHL players, and they all know about each other, but nobody talks about it. So it's kind of, you know, behind closed doors. And then we're introduced to Lester, who is 6'6". He's a defender, and he takes his chirping a little bit too far, and it becomes a bit sexually charged between him and Benji, who is only 5'8", and that's where the story starts. And all the way through, we see that it doesn't matter about your size or what your sexuality is or anything like that. If you can play hockey, you can play hockey, and that's the story basically.
Yeah, I love that sentiment.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about the season. As we're recording this, the season has just begun a few days ago on October 4th.
We're not talking scores, are we?
We'll avoid the scores this time. We've already did that heartbreak earlier. Now, RJ, we already know you root for the Penguins, of course.
Scores. Let me pull up my ESPN. You know, haven't checked scores in a couple days.
You're the Penguins, right, RJ? You and I share that a little bit because I am Penguins as well as Detroit.
Oh, right. Okay. So, yeah, that was a bad night. That was fine. They'll be fine. Come on. 2 years in a row.
They got it out of their system.
Absolutely. They've lost all those players. So, you know, we'll be fine. I have every faith. Mm-hmm.
Me too.
Yeah. Yeah, because Vicky's now got the Pens as your second team, haven't you, Vicky?
I kind of like them. Yeah, I can't admit that like in front of a lot of people because I get kicked out of Rangers groups and stuff. But yeah, I kind of like them.
Except we now have it recorded for everyone to hear that she does kind of like them.
Well, there goes my social life.
There goes your credibility.
There it goes.
It's all my fault, I'm afraid.
And of course, Vicky, you're best known for the Rangers. Definitely. I mean, your Facebook icon and everything. So.
Yeah.
And Heather, who's your team?
Yeah.
So my main team is the Avs, but my secondary team is the Golden Knights. Mm-hmm. And I am happy to say that both had a fantastic week this week.
Yeah, I'm glad the Golden Knights opened so well. It's nice when you're the new team to come out with looking good.
Well, if you are not following their Twitter feed, you probably should.
Their Twitter feed is hilarious.
Okay, I'll have to start following
hilarious.
that.
There was some guy. Yeah. He goes, I am so pissed off that the Knights got all these players, but whoever you guys hired to run your Twitter feed, I am now going to follow you guys because they are so, like, the player whose first name is Elvis. What's his name? Oh, I can't remember where they got him from. But they were like, and the Golden Knights just got Elvis. Do you think he's Elvis? Is he really Elvis? Is he Elvis? Oh my gosh, is Elvis coming back to Vegas? I mean, it's just that kind of like Vegas satire.
I love it when the teams all get into arguments.
Oh, yes. And the Golden Knights are fantastic about riling up the other teams, and they just go at it. It's hilarious.
Okay, I'm linking up to that feed today because I am not watching that feed.
My second team is New York Rangers now, and that's all Vicky's fault.
You can't go wrong.
No.
You can't go wrong.
But Fleury, I have to keep an eye on Fleury, so I'm following the Knights as well, bless them.
Yeah, I'm following the Knights too because of Fleury.
Well,
And I actually follow the Rangers because I tell you, watching the goalie is one of my favorite things to do with them.
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah. Let's hear what each of you has coming up next through the rest of the year. RJ, we'll start with you.
Oh, right. Well, in 11 days, I've got Deacon's Law coming out, which is the third and last book in the Heroes series. I've got a special secret, super secret project that I'm not telling anybody about that is coming out in November. We've got another Railers book coming out in December. That's the third one in the MM hockey romance I'm writing with Vicky. That's coming out in December. And we're currently writing Stan's story, which is book 4 in Railers. So that's really exciting. So yeah, it's a busy end of the year.
Indeed.
Very busy.
Yeah.
Heather, what's up next for you?
I am re-releasing the Holiday Vermont series. Book 1 should, actually, I'm just going to say January 1. And then every other month after that, each of the books is going to be coming out.
Okay, fantastic. Vicky, what's up next for you?
Oh, I had to get my paper out from under my cat. Hold on a second. Oh, okay. On the 18th, I have an MM contemporary called Improper Fraction, which is friends to enemies to friends, lovers. We don't know how that's going to end out. And then on November 1st, I have the I can't see. I have the 5th book in the Venom series, which is my MF hockey romance series, which actually is about a women's hockey team, professional hockey team, if anybody's so inclined. That comes out then. And then on the 12th of December, this co-authorly book with somebody, I don't know, because I can't see my notes, but it's called Deep Edge.
The 1st of December?
That's what I said.
I thought you said the 12th. It must be your funny accent. It's your funny accent. That's what it is.
Yep, that's what it is. Such a smart ass. Anyway, that's coming out on the 1st, and that's a hockey player and a figure skater who is very near and dear to our hearts.
Ooh.
That takes me through my year.
Cool.
And what about you, good sir?
I have on October 17th, the first book in my young adult cyber thriller series. Kicks off, it's the Codename Winger series, kicks off with Tracker Hacker on October 17th.
Ooh.
And that's a high school student who's a hockey player, computer genius, and also happens to be a covert agent.
Oh, I like that.
Wow, that sounds awesome.
So,
That needs to be made into a film.
Crazy. Is that on your young adult? Is that just because I work with sources of strength, so I'm a safe adult in my school. Is that an MM or just regular YA?
it is. For that one, I wanted the fact that the protagonist is gay to be like the least interesting thing about him. So he does have a boyfriend.
Okay.
So but it's not a romance. They're already established as the book opens. And I wanted to do something that was a little more action oriented and
Oh, I love action.
not just a love story, and and it's the first of I think 4 books that'll be out. So, and then at the top of next year, I've got The Hockey Player's Heart, which will be a Dream Spun Desire coming out that I actually co-wrote with my husband.
Oh,
Nice.
Fun.
And that's Not a for sure date yet, but it's either January or February for the Dream Spuns that'll be out. So,
how do you enjoy co-authoring with your husband? I mean, because I'm just having the most wonderful time of my life co-authoring with RJ, and I'm just wondering, like, but we're not married. I mean, if
I know, like, I'm thinking about.
So, like, is it challenging at times, or did you find it to be really easy?
I enjoyed creating with him, for sure, plotting it and laying it out. It was the first co-write for both of us, and so we found our way during it. And for him, it was the first time to write something that long form. And to get through the Dream Spinner edits, too. He'd never been through that process. He'd heard me talk about it before, but it was his first. And it's like, oh my God!
Look at all the red!
Look at all these marks.
Yeah, it's pretty scary.
But it was nice, because, I mean, he's helped me with my stories for years. He's always been my beta, so he's always given good feedback. And so it was a nice evolution of what we were already doing to write it together.
I'm actually writing something with my daughter, and it's a romance set in the city that she lives in Cardiff, and it's a fascinating process to see a family member through a different set of eyes, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's very enjoyable. Like, like if it's different than like writing, like co-authoring with another author, and then doing it with a family member, because there's so much with a family member that I thought probably it would be different.
I have as much fun with Bryony writing with her as I do writing with you. We're equally sarcastic and snarky and funny and loud and so yeah. It's
and
no
I haven't
really
done the co-write with anybody else, so I can't make the comparison.
Yeah.
So maybe someday I'll have another point of view as well if I co-write with somebody else. So what's the best way to keep up with everybody on social media? And for this one, we'll start with Vicky this time. Best way to keep up with everybody on social media.
Oh, I'm everywhere. I'm on Facebook, Twitter. Just look for VL Locey. You can find me. Where am I, RJ?
Everywhere.
Yeah,
too many places to count.
I am, and yeah, I'm everywhere. Just look for VL Locey. You'll find me.
If you type in the word Locey, Locey, you get you, because it's quite a unique surname that you've chosen there as your author name.
Oh. Okay. Well, that's good.
You're easy to find.
The married name came way before I chose the author name, so I'll have to thank my husband for having that name.
Yeah, you thank him.
Heather, what about you?
I am Heather Lire, Lire, everywhere. I'm even on Snapchat, but don't look me up on Snapchat because I may have Snapchat, but I do not know how to use Snapchat. I have it mainly so I can keep an eye on my kids. But I'm
RJ?
on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook.
And RJ.
Yeah, I'm everywhere as well. You just have to search for RJ Scott. You don't need the little points in between the R and the J, even though Goodreads demands that you do. I'm Twitter, Facebook mostly. Twitter I don't get sometimes, so I just tend to retweet people.
That's okay.
And that's about it. Yeah,
I can't.
And I have a
130
website.
Characters. I'm too wordy, so I can't get my thoughts into 130 characters for Twitter. I think that's what the problem is.
I hear they're moving to 240 soon, so that might
they
help
are,
with 280 or something.
They're doubling it up.
Well, that would be good.
Yeah.
That would help.
All right.
But I also have a website. I don't know if anybody else has websites, but my
I
website
have a
is rjscott.co.uk. Being that I'm in England, so it's .co.uk.
You are?
Yeah. Oh my god.
Oh my goodness. It has been so much fun talking to all of you and telling everybody about the Changing on the Fly anthology. Thank you all for joining, and hopefully we get good sales and are able to send a lot of money over to the charity this year.
Thank you for having us, Jeff.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for doing this.
So it was awesome talking to those ladies. you should definitely pick up, especially RJ and VL's series they write together. The Railers is a fun series to be doing, and that new book is coming out in just a few months. Well, I say a few months, it's actually just a few weeks, because December 1st really isn't that far away.
No, it is not.
It is not at all. And do pick up Changing on the Fly. The link's in the show notes, and it is only available during the NHL season, so it'll disappear about 6 months from now.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Get it at fine online retailers.
Indeed.
So that'll do it for this week's episode. Coming up next week in episode 109, we have Adam Reynolds and Chaz Harris. They're the creators of the Promised Land children's book. A book I love. Two pieces.
You do.
They're here to talk about that book and their newest project called Maiden Voyage. That Kickstarter is currently in progress.
Yes, and we'll link to that in the show notes also, because if you haven't backed it already, you really should.
Yeah, so come back next week. You're going to love it. Okay, guys, remember, no matter where life takes you, the journey will always be sweeter when you have a book. Until next time, guys, keep reading.
For detailed show notes and the complete episode backlist, go to biggayfictionpodcast.com. New episodes are available every Monday on all major podcast distributors and YouTube. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.